So I'll bring in this session today. We are entering into the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So I'll chant some prayers to invoke the blessings of the Lord and spiritual master. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Namo Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini. नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्रवातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणम्। Hare Krishna. So we are in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita today. So we have completed 8 chapters. So which is the middle. We are right in the middle of Bhagavad Gita. So let me just open the schedule which I had made originally. Yeah. So here is the schedule which I had made. So we are right on track. You can see we had started the first module on 16th August. And we completed the first module by 20th September. Then we had a revision session. Then we had chapter 7 and chapter 8. These two chapters also we completed. Today we are on chapter 9 and today is 18th October. And if you go at this pace, we will be completing our 18th chapter right on Gita Jayanti. That is on December 25th. So one chapter every day. So we'll be able to finish by Gita Jayanti. Plus one revision session and reflections after that. So you are right on schedule. I hope we'll continue this pace and complete the entire Bhagavad Gita. So all of you are enjoying this? How many of you are liking this study of Bhagavad Gita? Okay, many are raising their hands and some are saying yes in the chat box. Hare Krishna. So it's actually wonderful. And especially the section which we are starting now today, chapter 9 up to 12 is very, very wonderful. Just like when you have a sandwich, above there is a bread and below there is bread and between there is substance like cream or something. So similarly, Bhagavad Gita is also the middle chapters. They're like extremely nectarian. Just like when you have a gold item or a pearl, you keep it in a box, nicely protected. Similarly, Krishna has kept this confidential knowledge nicely protected in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, especially 9th chapter onwards. Okay, so we will begin our session today. So before that, does anybody know what was the last topic? The chapter number 8?
How to die, art of dying.
Art of dying, okay. Okay, that was one of the main themes, the art of dying. Krishna tells about how to quit this body and go to the next destination. So basically the chapter title was Attaining the Supreme. So that was the chapter name. So one point Omkar has said here that Krishna teaches there how to die. And after dying, where you go, what kind of destinations you'll get, all that was discussed. Okay. Does anybody remember any shloka from chapter 8? Anybody
Yes,
has memorized?
Yes,
Who is that?
Sorry, Prabhuji, Rishikesh.
Rishikesh. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. So I have memorized 8.5.
Okay.
Okay, so should I say it now?
Yes, you can say.
Antakale cha mamevam smaranam muktva kalevaram ya prayati sa madbhavam yati nasti atra samshaya.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So,
What is the meaning?
so its meaning is during the time of death, one who remembers me, he gets my nature. About this, there is no doubt. One who
Hmm.
remembers me alone at the time of death, he attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt.
Yeah. Attains my nature means what? He attains the spiritual world.
Yes, yes.
There is no doubt, no samshaya.
No
Thank you.
samshaya. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rishitesh. Anybody else?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, Omkar Tupe.
8.6.
Okay.
यम यम वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजन्तीं कलेवरं तं तमेवति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भाव भावितः.
Okay, what is the meaning?
During whatever kind of state we are thinking during a death, that kind of a state we can achieve in a next life. And in Purport it is written about Bharat Maharaj. During his death time he was thinking about a deer, so he got a next birth as a deer.
Wonderful. Thank you. Whatever state, yam vapi smaran bhavam. At the time that whatever state you have, that you'll attain in the next life. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody
Prabhuji,
else?
can I say?
Okay, Rishi.
8.15 Prabhuji.
Okay.
Mamupetya punarjanma dukhaliyam ashasvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gatha.
Paramam.
Yes,
Correct.
Mata. Yes, Prabhuji. And the meaning is that Krishna says that the people who are like great yogis in devotion, after their death, they never come back to this material world, having attained perfection.
Having attained some siddhim paramam. So they have attained perfection, they will not come back to this material world again. So same thing will be told in 15th chapter also. Yadgatva na nivartante. Tadhama paramam mama. So once you go back, you don't come back again. Thank you, Rishi. Okay, so thank you very much. All of you are reciting and trying to study this Bhagavad Gita. Wonderful. And others also, I'm sure you must have memorized and studied the chapters of purports of Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter. But in interest of time, we will start the discussion on chapter 9. The king, the most confidential knowledge. So in this, we'll be discussing some of the main questions, like which is the king of all knowledge? How is Krishna present everywhere, yet aloof from it? Who is a Mahatma? What is bhakti and the glories of bhakti will be discussed. And does Krishna show favoritism to his devotees? Is God partial? So that topic also will be discussed in this. So the shloka breakdown is like this. Shloka number 1 to 3 is about qualifications of practicing bhakti and disqualifications for practice of bhakti. That will be mentioned here. So the main qualification is non-envy. One should not be envious of Krishna. So that's the main thing. So the non-enviousness and faith, two main qualities are mentioned. And verse number 9 to 10 is Krishna's Aishwarya Jnana in relation to this material world. And this Aishwarya Jnana will help us to develop appreciation for Krishna's inconceivable energy, Achintya Shakti. Because God is not easy to be understood. So there are some things about God which we cannot understand. So Krishna is explaining here that you cannot understand some aspects of mind. And verse number 11 to 25, fools neglect bhakti, but the divine don't. Basically here three types of people are described: Duratmas, Mahatmas and indirect worshippers. Similarly in 7th chapter also we had discussed about Dushkrutina and Sukrutina. So here Krishna gives different terms, Duratma and Mahatma. So they are explained, and demigod worshippers, indirect worshippers are explained. And the last section, verse number 26 to 94, 34, describes the glory of devotional service to Krishna. So mainly 3 points: pure devotional service, Krishna shows favoritism to his devotees, and devotional service purifies everybody. Anybody can practice bhakti. So that Krishna tells in the last and the end of this chapter. So the acronym for this chapter is KING. K means knowledge, knowledge about Krishna, inconceivable knowledge about Krishna, and inconceivable relationship between Krishna and material energy. So that's I. And N means non-worshipper, non-worship, those who don't worship Krishna, and glories of bhakti. So this is the acronym for this chapter. Okay. So I will open Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9. So the connection is, in the previous chapter, the last verse and the verse before that mentioned little bit about bhakti. So here yoga yukto. So Krishna is using the word one who is united with me in yoga. And in the next shloka he is telling about a yogi, which refers to bhakti yogi specifically. A bhakti yogi does not have to care about what time he is dying, where he is dying. He doesn't have to bother. So any time, any place he quits, Krishna personally takes him back to Godhead. He doesn't have to wait for Uttarayana or Dakshinayana, Shukla Paksha, Krishna Paksha. All those considerations are not there at all in this for a bhakti yogi. So Krishna had mentioned about bhakti yogi in the 8th chapter, and Krishna continues explaining about the bhakti yogi in the 9th chapter. So there are no questions asked at the end of 8th chapter nor in the 9th chapter. Right? In 9th chapter also no questions asked. Krishna directly continues speaking about himself up to 10th chapter. Even in the 10th chapter beginning also there are no questions. Krishna continues speaking, and in the middle, Arjuna tells something, and then again Krishna continues speaking in the 10th chapter. So this is basically Krishna telling about himself a lot in the middle 6 chapters. Okay. So let's start reciting. First 3 verses are very important, so we'll recite those verses and try to discuss on them. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Is there anybody?
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Idam tu te guhyatamam
Idam tu te guhyatamam
pravakshyamyanasuyave
Pravakshamyanusuyave
jnanam vijnana sahitam
Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam
yajñatva mokshase shubhat.
Yadgyatva Mokshase Shubhat.
Can you read the
Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of miseries of material existence.
So here the word guhyatamam is being used. Idam tute guhyatamam. I'm going to tell you the most confidential knowledge. See, there are 3 kinds of knowledge. There is guhya, guhyatara, and guhyatama. You're seeing this here. So chapter 2 to 6 describes the knowledge of matter, spirit, which is confidential, guhya. Because it's very difficult to understand the soul. The knowledge of soul is also confidential. Because we are soul, but we don't know that we are soul. Many people don't know. At least after hearing Gita, all of you have come to know. But before that, we did not know. So that's why it's called as confidential knowledge. And chapter 7 to 8, they are called as more confidential because they describe bhakti. It's called guhyatara. Guhya, guhyatara. And chapter 9 describes knowledge of kevala bhakti, which is most confidential. That's what it's called as guhyatama. So, and it also describes the majestic aspect of Aishwarya of Krishna and excellence of pure devotee. So that's why it's called as Guhyatama. So what exactly happens in the spiritual world? What relationship Krishna will have with his devotee? In what ways devotee serves Krishna? That is the most confidential knowledge. Is my voice audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Is it clear, loud enough?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Maybe Suchitra, she's commenting, if you can have a earphone or something, then it can be much better. So, so that's the most confidential knowledge. So Guhya, Guhyatara, and Guhyatama. So these three categories of knowledge are described in Bhagavad Gita here. So here Krishna is telling, so the words Idam Jnanam refer to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything to Krishna. So with the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So this is Guhyatamam Jnanam. The activity is in relation to Krishna, most confidential relationships. That is Guhyatama. For example, all of us know about the Prime Minister. From distance, we know his name. We know that he is a Prime Minister. He is a big man, and we cannot meet him. But more near people, those who are working with him, they know, okay, what time he eats, what time he goes to the office, what all activities he does in the office, they may know. But his mother in home, she will know more details about him, what he likes to eat, what time he sleeps, and what are his favorite books, what are his habits. So all those things he will know, she will know. More confidential, most confidential. Similarly, devotees of the Lord, bhaktas of the Lord, they have the access to Krishna's privacy, right? They are very close to Krishna, especially in these 9 forms of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. So these are the 9 ways which Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport. So this is the most confidential knowledge, and who can understand? Anasuyave, one who is non-envious. Asuya means envy. Anasuya means non-envious. So Arjuna is non-envious. So that's why he is qualified to understand this knowledge. Because the root cause for us to come to this material world is envy. Because we wanted to be competitors of Krishna. We wanted to be like Krishna. So if somebody is envious, then Krishna will not take him back to Godhead. Right? He will not take him back because he will create trouble. Right? Imagine if you are staying with a person who envies you. Can you be peaceful? Because you always be afraid he will do something to me, or he may rob my property, he may rob my wallet. Like that, will be always anxious. So Krishna doesn't allow such people to stay in the spiritual world, and he doesn't give this knowledge to envious people also. So that's why Arjuna, being non-envious, is qualified to understand this message. Okay. So that is the first verse which Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Yeah, so we'll go to the next shloka, which is very wonderful shloka. So kindly recite after me. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam
Pavitram Idamuttamam
Pavitram Idamuttamam
Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam
Pratyakshagavamam Dharmyam
Susukham Kartum Avyayam.
Susukham Kartum Avyayam.
Please read.
Translation: This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of self-realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed.
Yeah. So I'm opening a slide share here. Yeah. See, it's called Raja Vidya. Raja Vidya means king. Vidya Raja, right? King among all the Vidyas is this knowledge. Knowledge about Bhakti is the king of all knowledge. Raja Guhyam. Why is it called Guhyam? Because it is very confidential. Pavitram. It is purest because Anybody who comes in contact with this bhakti becomes pure. That's why it's called as pavitram. And idam uttamam. Uttamam means it is beyond ignorance. Pratyakshaavagamam. And it is very blissfully performed. Dharmyam. It is the, Prabhupada says, dharma means it is the highest dharma, perfection of religion. And it is everlasting. Susukham is avayavam, everlasting, and it is susukham kartum. While performing also it is very, very blissful. So this is what is explained by Srila Prabhupada. See, Prabhupada says here, there are many different kinds of philosophies and there are different philosophers also, like Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Shandilya, Vaishwanara, and even the author of Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva. So much knowledge is there. But the king of all knowledge is about bhakti, about connection to Krishna, about devotional service to Krishna. That is the king of all knowledge. So Prabhupada says here, the king of all knowledge, all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. So that's why this chapter is also called as Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. So Prabhupada says here, so there are many different knowledge which we study, like politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments in huge universities, but there is unfortunately no university or education institution where the science of spirit soul is instructed, right? So that's why it is generally we call the universities as Vidyalaya, like Mahavidyalayas. But actually it is not Vidyalaya. If it is Vidyalaya, then they should be teaching about Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? But they're not teaching. So it is not Vidya. It is so-called Vidya. So it's the king of all knowledge. I'll read something for the purport here. This knowledge is purest form of all activities as explained in Vedic literature. So it is said that there are different kinds of sinful reactions which we have. And there are some certain sinful reactions which we are experiencing right now. That's called as prarabdha. And there are certain sinful reactions which we are not experiencing but which will come in the future. They are called as aprarabdha. So this bhakti removes prarabdha and it removes aprarabdha also. Okay. For example, a person has done some thievery. He steals some money. He has done some sinful activity. Now he has to get punishment for that sinful activity, but police has not yet caught him. He is freely roaming in the country. So the reaction has not yet come. So that reaction which has not yet come, that's called as aprarabdha. And when the police catches that thief and puts him in the jail, that's called as prarabdha, means the suffering which is already coming. So bhakti removes, the chanting of Hare Krishna especially, removes prarabdha and removes aprarabdha. And not only that, the thief, after getting released from the jail, after experiencing the punishment, he will get released from the jail, then he'll again go and steal. Means what? The desire to steal has not gone. Now how to remove the desire to steal? By process of bhakti. No other process, no other spiritual like yoga, gymnastics or pranayam cannot remove the sinful desires from within. Only bhakti can remove the sinful desires from within the heart, which is called as kutam and bijam. So kutam, bijam, prarabdha, aprarabdha, all four are thoroughly removed from within the heart. That's what is explained here. And it is the highest and it is directly pursuable. One can, when you start practicing bhakti, you can experience the benefits of bhakti in your life. Okay. So that is explained by the life of Narada Muni. You'll see here. So he is Narada. How did Narada become Narada? That's the question. Actually, Narada, he was a small boy. He was an insignificant boy of an insignificant maidservant. Okay, she was a dasi, and she used to go to different people's homes and clean vessels, clean their homes, and that kind of things. And they're living in very poor hut. But one day, by great fortune, some great sadhus called Bhakti Vedantas happened to come to their home because it was a rainy season. Like right now, it is rainy season. And generally during rainy season, sannyasis don't travel. They stay in a particular place and they do their devotional activities, pujas in one place only. Because it's raining, it's very inconvenient to travel, so they stay in one place. So they wanted a place to stay and they stayed at their home for 4 months. So right now also Chaturmas is going on. Adhik Mas has ended and then Chaturmas is continuing. So this is the specific time when Narada boy got the chance to serve. So he used to attend to their needs. He says, I also got the opportunity to render personal service unto them, and they blessed me with their causeless mercy. Like he will clean their place, wash their clothes, and give them prasadam, sometimes accept their mahaprasadam, the remnants of their foodstuffs. So in this way, he did some services to them. Like see here, they are discussing, and then he's coming with a plate of prasad and giving them. So they are accepting. So in this way, they became very pleased by the attitude of Narada. And when they were discussing Krishna Katha, he also used to sit nearby and hear. So by hearing about Krishna from these sadhus, he became attracted to Krishna. My taste for such topics increased at every step. And then I realized myself to be different from the gross and subtle body. Means I realized that I am the Atma. I loved those pure devotees greatly, and with very gentle behavior, I strictly followed their instructions. So this was the qualification of Narada. And after the end of Chaturmas, they went. They left their home and they continued their travels. So then what happened? After the Bhaktivedantas left, the mother, she had gone to get some milk from the cows in the night. So while coming on the way, a snake bit her and she died. And there is no mention about his father. So Narada boy and mother were only staying there in the home. And mother was the only shelter for this child. And when the mother died, Narada boy thought, generally somebody, ordinary man, he cries and he becomes hopeless, depressed. But Narada boy understood that nothing happens without the sanction of Krishna. So there must be some plan of the Lord in this. So he did the final rites and then he finally decided to go north. He wanted to go north and started towards the north to attain the Supreme Lord. Remembering the instructions of Bhaktivedantas, he traveled through different valleys and lakes and forests and towns, and then sat under a tree and he was meditating. And he realized that he is a spirit soul, and he also saw the darshan of Krishna, Vishnu within his heart, because he meditated on the form which was mentioned by the Bhaktivedantas. So whatever they had told, he meditated on them, on that form, and he could receive Lord within. He saw the Lord within, and there was ecstasy. Tears were in his eyes. You can see tears in his eyes here. But suddenly the Lord disappeared. Okay, the Lord vanished from the sight. And then he started searching, where is Vishnu? Where is Vishnu? Then he heard a voice which said that you should continue doing your practice, then you'll attain me. So then he continued doing his tapasya. Lord says, oh boy, you will be able to see me during this lifetime. So you'll not be able to see me during this lifetime, because one who is not complete in services and freed from all material contamination can hardly approach me. Actually, Lord gave him darshan, a flash of darshan, to increase the hankering of Narada to see the Lord. So that small glimpse increased his eagerness, and he continued following the process of bhakti with great intensity. And when he quit his body, so he became very absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and not material attachments. And then he quit his body. So when he quit his body, he actually, at the annihilation of Brahma, so actually when the night of Brahma, when Pralaya happened, he quit his body, and in the next creation of Brahma, at that time he became Narada. So that's what is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and he started traveling all around the world preaching Krishna consciousness. So the Narada boy became Narada Muni. So in the previous life he was a boy, then he became Narada Muni. And what is the meaning of Narada? Narada means one who gives Narayana to others. He is called Narada. So that's how the name comes. And you will see that later on Narada Muni, what kind of preaching he did. Dhruva and Nalakura Manigriva. He cursed them and then gave mercy to them. And then Vasudev, the author of all the Vedas, became his disciple. Even he is preaching to Yudhishthira Maharaj and also Prachini Barishad. And he is preaching to Chitraketu Maharaj. And then he heard from Brahmaji. So these are the qualifications. So he became such a great personality by practicing the process of bhakti. An ordinary child of a maid servant. It's not that he was born in a Brahmin family or no, nothing like that. He was born in an ordinary maid servant's family and later he became Narada Muni and became such a great soul. And whatever pastime of Narayana or Krishna, Narada Muni has to be there. Without Narada Muni, that pastime is incomplete. So that is a position which Narada Muni has got by the process of bhakti. So that's the meaning of Pratyaksha-avagamam. Right?
4,300,000 years and multiplied by 1,000. Then what it comes according to English calculation?
4,300,000,000. 4,300,000,000.
That is 12 hours. And add again 12 hours night. Then 8 billion.
600 million.
So Krishna comes after this period. In one day, after one day, a Brahma.
So this is a small video of Prabhupada in the PPT where it is emphasized that one should hear about Krishna from a pure devotee. One should chant.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Prabhupada's original
Rama, Rama
video.
Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
So this is process of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Maranam, Prahlad. Prahlad is remembering Krishna. Different pastimes of Krishna. And this Pada Sevanam, serving the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So Lakshmi Devi is serving the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. It's called Archanam.
By chanting Yesha Deepaha, followed by the deity's Mula Mantra, offer 4 circles to the lotus feet, 2 circles to the navel, and 3 circles to the lotus face of the deity.
It's Archanam.
Then offer the Deepa gracefully in 7 circles.
So this is called Arati, which you do, Archanam. Is one of offering prayers.
He's always meek and mild, with a warm and friendly smile, so simple in his living, singing all the while. He sings out Krishna's
Jagannath Baldev
name.
Subhadra. Dasyam. Who is example for Dasyam? Very famous
Hanuman.
personality. Hanumanji. Here. So Ramadut is making the bridge for Hanuman, for Lord Ram. It's called Dasyam. So in this way, one can serve the Lord in different ways. That's very practical. So that's why Raja Vidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram, Idamuttamam, Pratyaksha-avagamam. One can practically perform it and experience the benefit of it. So that's called Pratyaksha-avagamam dharmyam susukam. Kartumavim, and it's very happily performed, right? Eating prasad, is it boring? Not at all. Chanting Hare Krishna, is it boring? No, it's wonderful. Doing kirtan, it's also wonderful, right? So in this way, the process itself is very blissfully performed. In Kannada, there is a saying, Rogi bayasiddu halu anna, vaidya helidu alu anna. Means what? A rogi, a diseased man, he liked to eat rice and milk. That was his favorite dish. And when he went to the doctor for some problem, the doctor prescribed, hey, you should only eat rice and milk. It was so wonderful. He was in ecstasy. Similarly, Kali Yuga people, we like to chant, we like to eat, we like to dance. And what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has prescribed these three only. Chant Hare Krishna mantra, dance to the tune of Hare Krishna mantra, and also eat prasadam. So these are the process mentioned in this verse. Okay. So we'll go to the next verse where it is said that somebody who has no faith in this will not be able to find success. Ashraddadhanaha purusha
Ashraddhadanah Purusha
dharmasyasya parantapa
Dharmasyasya Parantapa
prapyamam nivartante
Aprapyamam Nivartante
mrityo samsara vartmani.
Mrityu Samsara Vartmani.
So Ashraddadhana, one who has no faith in Krishna or the process of bhakti. Dharmasya asya. Dharma here means bhakti. Aprapyamam, they will not attain Krishna. And nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. They will again come back or take birth again in this material world, in a different body. You will see this person here. So maybe Krishna exists, or yes, or no, confused. So he's chanting the only process. He's just chanting Hare Krishna the only process. Some people doubt actually, because the process is so simple. Are mala leke beto and chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Is this just by doing this you'll go back to Godhead? So that's the process recommended, but some people have doubt, and because they have this doubt, they cannot advance with full faith. First thing, we have to develop faith in the process. And when you have faith in the process, then you can practice the process with great intensity. If there is doubt, then that intensity will not be there. So when that intensity is there, then we can quickly achieve the desired goal. So that's what Krishna is telling here. See, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, in the last paragraph of this shloka, he says, those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, find the path very difficult. Means that those who don't have faith that, okay, Krishna lifted Govardhan hill. Some people think, how can it be possible? Krishna danced on Kaliya snake. Well, snakes are so poisonous. How can somebody dance on it? An ordinary person cannot do, but Krishna can do. Right? So people who doubt this, for them the path of bhakti will be very difficult. Even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service, still it will be difficult for them. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. So, faith is very important. In any aspect, faith is important. In your material aspect also, faith is important. Like when you want to travel by bus or a car, you have faith that the bus driver will take you to the destination. He will not cheat you, isn't it? So when you have that faith, then only you will sit in the bus. But when you sit in the bus, we don't check whether he has a license. Has anybody gone and asked the driver, do you have a license before sitting in the bus? No, we don't. But we have faith. Okay, he has a license. When you're sitting in the train, do you go and check in the engine whether the driver is sitting inside? No. You have faith. Okay, somebody should be sitting because the government has allocated somebody to drive the train. Somebody is sitting inside. You have faith. You just go and sit in your berth, isn't it? Faith. Similarly, when you're practicing this Bhagavad Gita, we should have faith in the words of Krishna. We should have faith in the words of Guru, and put faith and experiment. And when you start getting results, your faith will increase. Faith is like muscle. When you have little muscle, then use this muscle to build more muscle. Similarly, we have little faith. So when you use that faith, our faith builds up. So that's the way we have to develop faith and develop more strong faith in this process of bhakti. So that was the first part, K, about knowledge. And then let's go to the second section, which is inconceivable relationship between Krishna and material energy. So these are the two shlokas. Let's recite them. Maya tatamidam sarvam. Kanapur is there?
Maya tatamidam sarvam
Jagadavyaktamurtina
jagatavyaktamurtina
Matsthani sarvabhutani
matsthani sarvabhutani
Nachaham teshu avasthita.
na chaham teshvavastita.
He is telling, I am Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina. I am pervaded in the entire creation in my unmanifest form. So everything is resting in me. Matsthani sarvabhutani. In this photo, you will see that everything is there within Krishna. That's what Krishna is telling. Matsthani sarvabhutani. But nacha aham teshu avasthita. But I am not in them. Everything is in me, but I am not in them. So that's what Krishna is telling here. Means what? Everything is dependent on Krishna, but Krishna is not dependent on those items. So that's what Krishna is told here, first sloka. And next sloka he says something contradictory. So kindly repeat. Nacha matsthani bhutani
Na chamatstani bhutani
pasya me yogamayeshwaram
pashyame yogamaishwaram
bhutabrunna cha bhutastho
bhutabhrinna cha bhutasto
mamatma bhuta bhavanaha.
mamatma bhuta bhavanaha.
So here is telling completely opposite. Nacha matsthani bhutani. See, third line in the fourth sloka said matsthani sarva bhutani. And the first line in the fifth sloka is telling Nacha matsthani bhutani. So Arjuna got confused. Hey, Krishna, you are contradicting your words. Then Krishna says, no, it's not contradiction. This is my inconceivable energy, inconceivable aspect of my existence. He says, yes, everything depends on me, everything is in me, but nothing is there in me. Means what? I am not dependent on them. I am aloof from what is happening in this world, right? And Arjuna was not still convinced. Then Krishna gave an example of the wind in the sky. So that example is given.
We shall see.
Let me explain that. See, Krishna is telling, see, all around us there is wind. I am breathing the wind or air. But the air is there within the space, right? There is sky, big sky, space is there. In that space, there is the air which is blowing and it is sustaining itself. So without the space, the wind cannot exist. Means if you consider Krishna to be like space, then the whole creation is like the wind. Now, the absence or presence of the wind doesn't make any difference to the space. Or sometimes the cool wind or the hot wind, still it doesn't make any difference to the space. And sometimes good smell, fragrance, like when in train, when you're going sometimes, you'll find some green garden and you'll get good fragrance, pleasing fragrance, especially when you come near a lake or something. And sometimes when you pass by a sugar factory, you might have had experience, when you pass by a sugar factory, bad dirty smell, because all that fermenting substances will give bad smell, and then people close their nose or put the kerchief on their nose, bad smell. So either the good wind, good smell, or the bad smell doesn't make any difference to the space. Similarly, the whole creation is within Krishna, but Krishna is not at all affected by what's happening to the creation. He stays aloof from it. So that's the understanding. Another way you can understand it is, Krishna is in full control of this universe and his energies are running this universe, and he doesn't interfere with the functioning of this material world. It is happening on its own, under the supervision of the Lord. So these are the concepts which Krishna is telling here in these three shlokas, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, let's see some video about to understand this better.
We shall see.
You know this story? Krishna once ate mud, and the complaint went to Yashoda. And Yashoda Maya got worried. Hey, my son has eaten mud. How is this possible? And he'll get sick. Why did you eat, Krishna? Did you eat? He said, No, Maya, I didn't eat. Open your mouth. So then Krishna opened the mouth, and in the mouth, she saw the entire universe. She saw all the planets, sun, moon, stars. She saw the earth. And in earth, she saw Vrindavan, and she saw herself. So that is the potency. Means what? Everything is within Krishna. Krishna proved it by showing it in the mouth. Everything is within Krishna. Matsthani sarvabhutani. And Krishna is pervaded everywhere in the Virata Rupa form. Everywhere he is there.
Emanates all the three worlds, both spiritual and mundane. Everything rests in me, Arjun, just as you see pearls hang upon a thread.
See here, from Mahavishnu's body, when he breathes out, all the universes come out. Means what? Everything is there within the body of Mahavishnu. Right? So that's another proof that everything is within Krishna. Ekam Shena Sthito Jagat, with a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support his entire universe. Although he is pervading everywhere, in his impersonal form, Krishna still resides in his Goloka Vrindavan, in his original form as Shyamasundar. Right? There is one verse in Brahma Samhita. Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Right? So Krishna is everywhere, but in his original form, he stays in the Goloka Vrindavan. One example to understand this is sun and the sun rays. Sun is there everywhere, even in the room right now. The sun is there in the form of light, because the light is coming from the sun. So in one sense, you can say, okay, sun is in my room, but in the form of light rays. But the sun in the form of a globe is there somewhere high in the sky. Similarly, Krishna is there everywhere in his impersonal Brahma Jyoti form. But in original form as Krishna, he is there in Goloka Vrindavan. So that's the meaning of Nachamat-sthani Bhutani. But this is Yoga Maishwaram, Pashyame Yoga Maishwaram. This is the unique quality of Krishna, inconceivable power of Krishna. So then Arjuna asked a question, hey, everything is within you? So then living entities are also within you? Krishna says, yes. Then what happens to those living entities? How do they get bodies? All the doubts Arjuna had. And Krishna continues explaining, saying that, yes, the material world, which is dependent on me, is created and destroyed. Is created and destroyed, periodically. But when the creation happens, the living entities get the bodies based on the karma which they have done in the previous lives. And when it is destroyed, they go into my body and they stay within me in the unmanifest form. So that's how the creation and destruction happens. Prakritam swam avashthabhya visrjami punah punah bhutagramam imam krishnam avasham prakritir vashat. So by my power, everything is created and destroyed. But then Arjuna is asking, hey, you do so much of work? Huh? So you are telling that you are aloof, but you are doing so much of work. Don't you get the reactions for this work? So are you not responsible for the good and evil which happens in this world? And Krishna says, no, I am not responsible, because work cannot bind me. Why the work cannot bind me? Because I am neutral. I do not desire any, I do not have any desires, right? I am udasin, he says. Udasinavadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu nachamam tani karmani nibandanti dhananjaya. Hey Arjuna, whatever work I am doing, it doesn't bind me. And it's not that I am struggling to do this work. Just like you will see in the Western world, there is one concept of one personality called Atlas. You might have seen Atlas. He's holding the whole earth on his back like this and he's struggling hard to hold the earth. So that is a fictional character they have. In the Atlas cycles, which used to come long back. So there, that photo used to be there, Atlas holding the whole earth. So Krishna doesn't have to struggle like that to hold the world. Just by his desire, earth is created and is floating in his orbit. So that much power Krishna has. He doesn't have to struggle. And it's not that he's doing this work, so he's bound by the work and he's responsible for the good and bad which is happening in this world. Krishna says no, because I am neutral. How am I neutral? That will be explained later in the end of this chapter. Krishna says, I am equal to everybody. There, Krishna explains this concept very beautifully. I'll keep this for that part. But right now we can understand that he is neutral and he remains neutral, because of which he doesn't interfere with the happenings of this material energy. It's happening by the Maya Shakti. He has deputed Maya Shakti, under whose control the world is running, which he tells in the next verse. So kindly recite this verse. Maya Dhyakshena Prakritihi
Mayadhyakshena prakritihi
Suyate Sacharacharam
Suyate Sacharacharam
Hetunanena Kaunteya
Hetunanena Kaunteya
Jagad Viparivartate.
Jagat Viparivartate.
So then one may say, okay, Krishna is neutral. Then how the work is happening? Krishna, no, under my Adhyakshata, through my Prakriti. Right? See here, Krishna is there on the top and there Maya Devi is there below. Under the Adhyakshata, supervision of Krishna, Maya Devi is doing all the work. Like you'll see, creating, giving bodies to the plants and animals, birds, and punishing people. All that Maya Devi is doing. Krishna is aloof. Just like in a company, a owner of a company, suppose a CEO, he just sits and it just supervises everything. He takes reports. But there are managers who are working hard day and night. And then the CEO is paying them. The owner of the company is paying them. So owner is peaceful, but all the other people are working hard. So that is the meaning of Adhyakshata. Under Krishna's Adhyakshata, Mayadevi is performing all the work in this world. So that's what is the meaning of this shloka. So Srila Prabhupada mentions here in the last, let's see here. So in summarizing this shloka, in summary, the material nature without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities. Krishna is busy pleasing his devotees, relishing rasa with his devotees, like playing flute, dancing with the gopis, giving enjoyment to his cows and the calves. That's what is his duty. But he doesn't interfere minutely in the material activities. For that, he has deputed Vishnu and he has deputed Durga Devi, and they take the whole charge of this material world. And Krishna remains aloof, detached from all these material activities. So that is the section from up to verse number 10, verse number 4 to verse number 10. So then Arjuna is having a question in his mind. Hey, you are so great. You told me about your inconceivable energies. You are so great. Then why don't some people worship you? Why don't people understand your real position? So then Krishna says the next one. The people who do not worship Krishna. So here he says, Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. He is telling here, fools, mudhas, see the word mudha is used, fools do not know me. Manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto. They think that I have come like an ordinary human being. And they do not know my real nature. That I am the controller of all the material world. They don't know. Because they don't know this, they don't worship me. Krishna says. So here you will see two photographs. You know who is this person here on the left side? Any guesses?
Paundraka.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Paundraka. Yeah, Rishikesh is correcting. Yeah, it's correct answer. Paundraka. See, he is carrying a flute and he's having a peacock feather. He's having a yellow dhoti, but he doesn't have bluish complexion, looking reddish. He thought that I am Krishna, I am the Supreme Lord, and he tried to fight with Krishna, telling that, hey, Yadava, you are a coward boy. I am God. Just give up your concept that you thinking that you are supreme. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Like the Paundraka challenge. And Krishna had a good laugh. And finally, Krishna released his arrow, not arrow, his Sudarshan Chakra, and killed Paundraka. And even Kashiraj, his friend, both were killed. So here is another person. Who is this person here? Whom Krishna
Shishupal.
Shishupal, correct. The Shishupal also thought that Krishna is an ordinary king, and he was blaspheming Krishna like anything. It is said that when he was born at that time, he started giving gali to Krishna. By birth, he was only giving gali. So that was the nature of Shishupal. And it is said that Shishupal's mother had asked a benediction from Krishna, that please don't kill my child. So then Krishna had told, okay, I'll not kill him, but if he exceeds 100 offenses, then I'll kill him. So every time Krishna and Shishupal came face to face, at that time Shishupal was blaspheming, but it never reached 100. But today, on the Rajasvi Yajna, so Shishupal blasphemed, and Krishna was hearing patiently, tolerating, and it reached 100 century. Then Krishna took his chakra and cut off his head. So these are called as mudhas. Mudhas means foolish people or asses. Ass is a foolish animal. Today I was hearing a Prabhupada lecture on this same verse. So Prabhupada is telling mudha means ass. Why is called an ass? Because ass carries huge luggage. So dhobis clothes it carries. And after carrying the heavy weight, what it gets in return? It gets some grass. That's all, little bit of grass. So it carried weight, and none of the clothes belong to the that ass, and is working hard for little grass. But grass is available everywhere freely. So that's a foolish animal, doesn't know that grass is available freely, and he thinks that when I carry, then only I'll get grass. That's why it's called mudha. So here also people do Krishna, they don't understand Krishna properly. That's why they're called as mudhas. Such mudhas cannot understand Krishna and will not worship Krishna. And what will happen to them in the future? They'll be born in Rakshasa family or Asuric families. They'll be or they'll go to Naraka. But on the other hand, there are Mahatmas who are under Daivi Prakriti Mashritaha. Those who are under the shelter of internal Shakti, Radharani or Lakshmi. They're worshipping Lakshmi or Radharani, and they are very safely protected. And they worship Krishna with full faith. Bhajanti ananya manaso. Jnatva bhutadim avyayam. They know that Krishna is the controller of all the material elements. So they are called Mahatmas. See, Mahatma is not we should not use the word Mahatma in a very ordinary sense. It's a term used for great personalities. So Srila Prabhupada explains here about the word Mahatma. He says, so they are under the, in the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, the Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. So by the association of pure devotees, one becomes a Mahatma. So that's what we can understand. So such Mahatmas, how do they worship Krishna? Next verse explains the mode of worship. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavritah namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityukta upasate. They always do kirtan. satatam kirtayanto mam. Yatantascha dhradavrata, with great determination. And they'll offer obeisances, namasyantascha mam bhaktya, with great devotion. They'll bow down to me. Even if there is dust, they'll bow down and they'll cover their body with their dust. And nitya yukta upasate, always they'll worship me. This is the quality of a pure devotee, Ananya Bhakta. So one of such examples is Srila Prabhupada, who is Ananya Bhakta, who did always Kirtan. You'll see Prabhupada doing Kirtan here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prabhupada did this Kirtan and made so many devotees by chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. So this is a great Mahatma. So Krishna mentioned about those who do not worship him and those who worship him. Okay, 11, 12, he mentioned those who don't worship him because they don't know Krishna as supreme or they think him to be ordinary. And 13th and 14th, Krishna mentioned about Mahatmas. But there is another category who worship Devatas. So that he will mention in the next verse, 15th verse. Jnana yajnena chapyanye yajanto mam upasate ekatvena pratatvena bahuda vishwatomukam. So there are three categories. Ekatvena, pratatvena, bahuda vishwatomukam. So this is explained from verse 15 up to 25. Ekatvena means one who think that he is God. That is Ekatvena. They worship me in oneness, thinking themselves to be God. Like there are some Mayavadi people who think that I am God. Or even now in India, there are some sadhus who say that I am God. They are Ekatvena, which is not true. And this will be discussed in detail in 12th chapter, verse number 1 to 5. Arjuna asking to Krishna, who is greater? One who worships your impersonal form or one who worships you directly? And there Krishna says, one who worships me directly is the highest. So that is clarified in the 12th chapter. And Prataktvena, people who worship me in diversity, in the form of many devatas like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, Surya, demigod worshippers. They are also mentioned here, verse number 20 to 25. And Vishwato Mukham, there are people who worship the elements in nature, the universal form. So they are also one category. Actually, these are all different forms of the Lord. One is the impersonal aspect of the Lord, another is the demigod features of the Lord, another is the universal elements of the Lord. So the other people worship this. Okay. So here Krishna is telling, worshipping Krishna in the universal form. So verse number 16, 17, 18, 19 tell about this. Aham kratoraham yajnam swadaham aham aushadam mantroham aham evajyam aham agniraham hutam. Right? He is saying that I am the performer of yajna, I am the yajna, I am the ingredients of the yajna, like the butter, I am the mantra, I am everything. So in fact, everything comes from Krishna. So in one sense, everything is Krishna. Right? See on 17, 18, 19 also, Krishna tells about different aspects of himself. You can read about it in the Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita. So you'll get more information about Krishna telling about. He says, I am the Agni, I am the Surya, I am the, I am giving the rain, I am giving summer, I am giving winter seasons. Like that, Krishna says many, many things about himself. And there are others who worship the Devatas. So we discussed about Vishwatomukham, and here are the demigod worshippers. What they do, they want to go to demigods by worshipping the demigods. Trai vidyamam somapa putapapa yagnerishtva swargatim prarthayante te punyamasadya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. So what is their goal? Swargatim prarthayante. They want to go to Swarga. Why they want to go to Swarga? Because there is lot of material enjoyment. You will see here Indra is enjoying with Apsaras and there's a lot of wealth there. There is no old age there. A lot of facilities are there. So they want to go there. So for going there, what they do? They do a lot of yajnas mentioned in Rig Veda, Yadur Veda and Sama Veda. Rig, Yajur, Sama. So they mentioned about going to Swarga. Swargaloka. So they mentioned the yajnas, they perform the yajnas mentioned in them. So they'll go to Surendra Lokam. Who is Surendra? The king of all the suras. He is Indra. And Ashnanti Divyan, they will enjoy Divideva Bhogan, the enjoyment of the Devatas. But after enjoying for a long time, Tetam Bhuktva, Swargalokam Vishalam, enjoying the happiness of Swarga, Shine Punya Martalokam Vishanti, they will again come back to this material world. They cannot stay there permanently. They have to come back to this material world. Just like, for example, if your company is very happy with your performance, they may give you a trip. Okay, go to Shimla for a week, 7 days, 7 nights, free trip. But after that trip is over, you have to come back, isn't it? So when that quota is over, you have to come back. So when that currency is over, you have to come back to recharge it, isn't it? So earth is the only place where you can recharge your currency of punya and papa. So when punya is over, you do more punya on earth by doing yajnas and dana, then you can go back to heavens again. So once you finish your quota of enjoyment, again come back. Shina punya martalokam vishanti. Evam trayi dharmam manuprapanna gata gatam kama kama labante. So the word gata, agata is used. Means going and coming. You know this ferry wheel? In circus you might have experienced the ferry wheel. The giant wheel, it goes up and then comes down. And goes up and comes down. It's like that. So gata, swarga gata and agata. Going and coming. So net displacement is 0. So what is the use of having such aspirations to go to Swarga? So that is useless, Krishna is telling here. But on contrary, see, the demigod worshippers go to Swarga and come back. But those who worship Krishna with pure devotion, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Krishna is telling that those who worship me with Ananya Chinta, Ananya means Ananya, without thinking of anybody else. And I'll not worship Indra, not Devata, any other Devatas. I'll just worship Krishna. Ananya Chintayanto Mam. Ananya Janaham Paripasate. They will worship me. Tesham, to them, Nitya Abhiyuktanam, those are constantly devoted to me. Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. So this is a very famous line you might have heard. Generally, our Indian LIC policies, they use this term, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. Actually, LIC can give insurance only. They'll not insure you, but they'll insure those who are living after we die, isn't it? So that insurance benefit goes to somebody else. But they cannot insure our life. They cannot stop death. But Krishna is here telling that yoga kshema vahamyam, I will give you the process by which you will come back to me. That is yoga. And once you attain me, I will ensure that you will not fall down. That is kshema. So Krishna protects his devotee from fall down. He brings them to him. He gives the process to come to him. And then once they come, he'll safeguard. This is one meaning. And another meaning is Krishna protects what you have. That is yoga. Whatever you are having, he'll protect it. Kshema means what you are lacking, he will provide you. So that is yoga kshema. Vahami aham. He says, I'll personally. Then Arjuna may think, hey, you are personally carrying. It will be so burdensome, right? You have to carry so much. No. It's not burdensome. It's burden of love. Just like mother carries the baby. Even though the baby is little fat, she will be happily carrying the baby. That's burden of love. There's like love for me, for carrying my devotees. I don't bother. It's such a wonderful experience for me, Krishna says. So this is love of Krishna. In this connection, there is one story of Arjunacharya. I'd like to mention it in short. So there was a great devotee, Arjunacharya, and he was reading Bhagavad Gita. And in his home, there was nothing, very poor. They didn't have anything to eat for that day. So Arjunacharya was reading Gita and he came to this shloka. He said, Yoga Kshem Vahamyaham. See, I'm so poor and I'm serving Krishna and I don't have anything to eat for today. Then what he did, he took a pen and he struck this Yoga Kshem Vahamyaham. That line he struck off. He was thinking that it is not true, it's false. Then he told his wife, I'm going to take bath in the river and I'll come back. prepare something if possible. Arjuna went. Then after some time, so wife had nothing in home, so she was just sitting, and there's a knock on the door. So then she opened the door. Then the two boys were there, standing, and they're carrying huge weight. Then she said, "Hey, who are you? What did you bring?" "We are from nearby village, and your husband has sent this heavy load. Please take it." "My husband has sent you such a heavy load on your two boys?" Then she immediately picked it up and kept it down. So then she said, "Okay, come inside, take some water." No, we have to go. We have some other, we'll go. So then they turned around, they're walking off. Then she saw some lines on the back. And it is bleeding. And she said, "How did you get these lines? Somebody beat you?" Then he said, "Yes, your husband. Not only put the weight on our head, but he also beat us." "My cruel husband? How come he's become so cruel nowadays?" So then they said, "But we have to go, we will leave." So both the children, they went. Then after some time, Arjunacharya came home, and once he comes inside, he sees a nice cooking is going on. Then he asked, "Hey, how did you get these items?" Then she looked at her and him and said, "You only sent?" "I sent? I didn't send you." "No, you only sent those two boys to carry the heavy weight and brought all these items. See, rice, sugar, and then the milk, vegetables, so many things you have brought." "I didn't send anybody." He said, "You didn't send anybody? And who were those two children?" Then Arjunacharya asked her, "Can you please explain their form?" She said, "They're very extremely beautiful, so soft and delicate. One was blue color, another was whitish color, and they had curly black hairs. They were wearing yellow dhoti, one was wearing blue dhoti. It's extremely beautiful. But you, cruel husband, you not only put the weight on their head, but you beat them also." Then Arjunacharya understood. Hey, Krishna and Balaram had come to our home. I never sent anybody. They came on their home. Then he understood. He went back to that book and he took a eraser and erased that scratch which he had made. Because Bhagavad Gita is not different from Krishna. It is Krishna's words. So when he struck off that lines came on Krishna's. Krishna showed that no, I am Bhagavad Gita, not different from me. And if you don't have faith in Bhagavad Gita, it is like scratching me. So then he immediately erased and he got full faith. Yoga Kshema Vahami, I will personally carry. So this is a real story mentioned by Acharyas. So I just thought of sharing. So this will give us faith also. This is Krishna's love. He will carry for his devotee. He will care for his devotee also. So there's Ananya Bhakta. So here you saw the example of Draupadi. She cried to Krishna. Krishna immediately came. He was in Dwarka, but immediately appeared in the form of sari and protected the chastity of Draupadi. And Bhishma also, Ananya devotee of Krishna. And Bhishma wanted to experience Virya Rasa with Krishna. And Krishna is fulfilling their desire by trying to fight with Bhishma here. But there are other devatas also. So people who worship those devatas, they are worshipping Krishna but indirectly. Epanya devata bhakta ejante shraddhayanvita tipimamiva kaunte ejantihi avidhi purvakam. See, there's one is vidhi purvakam and avidhi purvakam. Vidhi purvakam is what? Like for example, eating food. How we eat? We eat like this. Okay, and eating like this means avidhi purvakam. We don't eat like this. Indirect worship. Similarly, all the devatas are like the bodily parts of Krishna. Like Indra is considered to be the hands of Krishna, like that. So sun is considered to be the eyes of Krishna. So worshipping the part of the body is like indirect worship. But if you worship Krishna in entirety, that is direct worship. So these devata worshippers, they are indirectly worshipping Krishna, avidhi purvakam. So then he says, but all acts are meant for satisfying Krishna, not devatas. That's what he mentions here. But they are worshipping devatas according to the scriptural injunctions. What is wrong if the worshippers follow the instructions of those books? Yeah, in Vedas, you only mentioned in Vedas that you can worship the devatas. And Krishna says, yes, I have mentioned in the Vedas. But I have told also that if you worship the devatas, you will go to Devalok, you will not come to me. Right? Yanti deva vrata deva, pitrunyanti pitravrata, bhutani yanti bhuteji, yanti madhyajanopima. If somebody worships devatas, they'll go to Devaloka. Somebody worships the ancestors like Pitras, they'll go to Pitraloka. Somebody worships Bhutas and Pretas and Rakshasas, they'll go to Rakshasaloka. But one who worships me will come to me. So all the paths do not lead to the same goal. Like for example, if you take a ticket to Delhi, can you reach Kolkata? Not possible. If you take a Delhi's ticket, you'll go to Delhi only because they'll allow you to sit in the Delhi train only. Similarly, if you are worshipping Indra, you cannot go to Krishna. Because you are considering Indra as supreme, how can you go to Krishna? It is not possible. So all the paths do not lead to the same goal. Of course, indirectly they are worshipping Lord only, but they will not go to Krishna unless they have understanding that all these devatas are subservient to Krishna. They are under the command of Krishna. Till that time, they will not go back to Krishna. So this point should be very clear. Of course, there are many points which Prabhupada writes in the purport here in these slokas, but in interest of time, I'm not going to the purports. So now comes the interesting section, the most important section of this, which is Bhakti Yoga, verse number 26 to 34. Our destination thus depends on our choice to accept certain type object of worship. If you worship devatas, you go to devatas, like that, object of worship. The best choice, however, is to worship Krishna. Now in the next section, Krishna elaborates on exclusive worship of himself. Having established that he is the only enjoyer of all sacrificial offerings, Krishna first reveals what types of offerings he desires. How to worship him begins by how to offer, what to offer to him. So section 4, glories of bhakti. So here you will see the famous verse. So kindly repeat after me. Patram pushpam phalam toyam.
Patram pushpam phalam toyam.
Yo me bhaktya prayachati.
Yo me bhaktya prayachati.
Tadaham bhakti upahartam.
Tadaham bhakti upahartam.
Ashnami prayatatmanaha.
Ashnami prayatatmanaha.
So here Krishna is telling that if you offer me patram means leaf, some vegetable, basically tulsi leaf. Pushpam means flowers. Phalam means fruits. Toyam means water. He is not telling patrani, pushpani, phalani. No, he says one leaf or one flower or one fruit with bhakti. Yome bhaktya prayachati. Tadaham bhakti upahartam. See, the word bhakti is used two times, indicating that Krishna is not concerned about the item which you offer. He is concerned with the feelings with which you offer, with the devotion which you offer. That's why Krishna is emphasizing 2 times, bhakti, bhakti. If that is offered with love, I'll accept it. Ashnami, prayatatmana, because that devotee is very surrendered to me, I'll surely accept it, he is telling. So then one may say, Hare, Ashnami was eating, you will eat flower also? Yes, I will eat. If anything devotee gives me with love, I'll eat it. You'll eat fruit, okay, but you'll eat leaf also? Yeah, I will eat. Like that Krishna is telling, means he is so overwhelmed with the devotion of the devotee that he can eat anything that is given to him. So the example is here, this Vidura's home. So once Krishna came to Hastinapur and Vidura, he went to Vidura's home. Actually, Duryodhana had invited for a feast, Chappan Bhog. But Krishna came to Hastinapur but did not go to Duryodhana. Duryodhana was already ready with all the feast, but he did not go there. So, but where he went? He went to Vidura's home, and Vidura was out at the time. And Vidurani was surprised. Krishna, you have come to her home. Then she was a little confused what to do, and then nothing. She put some mat for Krishna to sit, and there are some bananas. So she started peeling the bananas. And in great ecstasy, great love, she gave the peel and put the banana down. And she gave the peel and put the banana down. So Krishna was eating the peel. Now generally we don't eat the peel, we eat the fruit. So, but Krishna was eating. And somebody said, hey, Vidurani, what are you doing? Krishna, stop. It's between me and her. She is giving me such love. I'm accepting that love. Right? Because Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He accepts the love with which the item is offered, not the item. So there is a song which says, Duryodhana ka bhog na khayo, रूक साग विदुर गर खायो, ऐसे प्रेम पुजारी राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम. So this song says that no, Duryodhan ka bhog na khayo. He did not accept the Duryodhan's bhog, although it was opulent, but there is no devotion. There is envy. So Krishna did not like it. But here, Vidura's home, he had simple ruk sag because it was full of devotion. You can see also sometimes we go to some costly hotel to eat some food made in that restaurant. But even after eating that, you will not find satisfaction. But you come home and you eat simple roti made by mother, you'll feel great satisfaction because it's made by with love. Similarly, Krishna also accepts the love of the devotee, not the item which is offered. But Devatas, they want items. Hey, how much quantity you are offering to me? That's what Devatas say. But Krishna doesn't look at quantity. He says even one leaf is sufficient. So that's the greatness of devotion. So then Arjuna may say, I don't have devotion then. No, still you can offer to me, he says. Krishna says, Yad karosi yadashnasi yadjuhosi dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever activities you do, like here somebody is cleaning, offer it to Krishna. Clean for Krishna. Somebody is cooking, cook for Krishna. Somebody is doing arti for Krishna. Somebody is eating, eat Krishna prasad. Right? Somebody is doing gardening or working somewhere, work for Krishna. Do everything for Krishna. Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya, fight for me. That's the indication here. That you do it, Madarpanam. Don't do it for somebody else, do it for me. So that is a ultimate thing actually. Generally, this is very practical for us. Like somebody is an engineer, you can use that engineering talent in Krishna service. But somebody is a cook, you can cook nice, delicious food, offer it to Krishna and eat prasad. Right? So you can use all your talents in the Lord's service. That also is called Bhakti Yoga. Then by doing these things, you become purified. Shubha Shubha Phale Reva Moksha Se Karma Bandhane. You will become freed from Karma Bandhana. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukta Mam Upeshasi. So because he has dedicated Sannyasa Yoga, Sannyasa means dedication to Krishna. He has dedicated all the work to Krishna, then he will come to me. Vimukta means Vishishta Rupena Muktaha. Vishishta Rupena Mukta means he will get a personal audience with Krishna. To be a close associate of Krishna in the spiritual world, in Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhurya, in any of these forms. So that speciality he will get. Then here, one question comes to Arjuna. Hey Krishna, you are showing favoritism to your devotees. You say that the demigod worshippers will not come to you, but your worshippers will come to you and attain that highest destination. Isn't it partiality on your part? Then Krishna says, see Arjun, I am equal to all. Just like rain. Rain is not partial. Rain pours, like if it rains in Bangalore, it will rain on the building also, it will rain on the road also, it will rain on the top of the trees also, it will rain on the lake also. Everywhere it will rain. So Krishna is equal to everybody. He gives mercy to everybody. But if it falls on the roof, it is of no use. Unless if he has got some rainwater harvesting. If it falls on the lake, then it will be part of the lake. That's good. If it falls on the road, it may mix with the gutter and become gutter water. So if it falls on the stone, nothing will come up. But if it falls near a seed in a fertile soil, and the seed sprouts and becomes a plant and produces fruits. So similarly, I am equal to everybody. But based upon just like rain showers and different seeds germinate and become different plants. Some becomes a thorny plant, some becomes a fruit plant or mango plant. Similarly, by my mercy, different jivas, according to their karmas, they will get the results. In that way, I am equal. If somebody does good, then he is rewarded good. If somebody is doing bad, then he is given punishment. That is equality. It's the government is also equal to all. How is it equal to all? If somebody is obedient, they will reward him. If somebody is criminal, they will reform him. So that reformation and reward, both are same. Isn't it? Both are justice. So similarly, Krishna is also equal. Samoham sarva bhuteshu I'm equal to all. Name dveshyosti. I'm not envying or I'm not taking revenge on anybody. He says, Name dveshyosti na priya. But those who are very dear to me, those who are my devotees, they are in me and I am in them, he says. That is the next verse, 29th verse. Krishna is telling, Samoham sarvabhit bhuteshu name dveshosti na priya. Ye bhajanti tu ma bhakti maite teshu chapyaham. I am in them and they are in me. So that intimacy Krishna is telling here. Right? Like Putana came to kill Krishna, but Krishna killed Putana, but gave the position of mother in the spiritual world. Such a wonderful destination, isn't it? But others also Krishna killed, and according to their mentality, Krishna gave them the destination. And not everybody went back to Godhead. Only Putana and Aghasura, they got the position in the spiritual world, but other demons were envious. So Krishna didn't take them to the spiritual world. He put him in some other place. Up to Brahmajyoti they might have gone. So that is Krishna's equality. But for devotees, he is specially inclined. Then he goes on to explain how he is very, very specially treating his devotees. Right? So he is telling here in this verse that even if some devotee is very, very commit some blunder, for example, a person who is very sinful committed a blunder, but Krishna says, but if he is having faith in me and is worshipping me with faith, then he should be considered as sadhu. That's what he's telling here. Apichet sudaracharo bhajante mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Right? So here you will see this Indra committed a blunder because of his Gautama Rishi's wife. He committed a blunder, but then he repented, and then he again begged forgiveness, and then again he was reinstated. See, if somebody commits a blunder, but he is repentant and he unwillingly committed some blunder, but Krishna says he should be still respected. Of course, he may be reformed, but he should be still respected. That's why he has a sadhu. Sadhureva samantavya. Because such a person will surely quickly become dharmatma. Shashvat chantim nigachati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Right? So, for example, Valmiki, he was a very, very sinful person. Right? But this sinful person, he took to the chanting of Ram's name. And by chanting the names of Ram, he became fully purified. Very sinful person became a purified person. Right? So even such a sinful person can become a saint. So it is said that every saint had a past, isn't it? And every sinner has a future. So now somebody may be saintly, but before he may be a sinner. And now somebody may be a sinner, but in the future he will become a saint, provided he is following the path of Krishna consciousness. See, path of Krishna consciousness is like taking a shower in the bathroom. Suppose somebody goes and plays in the mud and it becomes muddy, and people are saying, "Chi chi chi, so dirty you are." But he comes to the shower and is taking bath. But while taking bath, also some dirt will be sticking to the body. And one should not say, "Hey, you're so dirty." Just wait for 5-10 minutes; he'll become fully clean. Similarly, somebody may have been sinful in the past, but he is now practicing bhakti. Very soon, he is going to become purified. So that's why Krishna is telling here, such a person who is in the shower, he is sinful, but he is in the shower. So just wait for some time. He's chanting Hare Krishna now, he'll become fully pure. That's what Krishna says in the next verse. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigachati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Name bhakta pranashyati. Arjuna declared to this world that my devotee will never perish. So this is what why Krishna is telling Arjuna to declare, because Krishna will break his promise. Because sometimes, many times Krishna makes promise, but he'll break it. But that's why he's telling Arjuna, you declare, because when you promise, I cannot break it. So my devotee will never perish. Like that, Krishna makes a declaration. So yeah, see here, even a sinful person is delivered by the Lord, provided he takes shelter. So we should give the hand to the Lord to deliver us. Then he will be delivered. So just 3 more verses are remaining. I'll just finish it in just 5 minutes. Then we'll take some questions. Okay. So the glories of devotion service. See here, even very, very fallen persons like can be purified by the Lord. Mami Partha Vipashrita Epishu Papa Yoneha. Papa Yoni means sinful people. Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudra. Women, Vaishyas and Shudras. Tepiyanti Paramgatim. Even they can become elevated to a very, very high platform by practicing Krishna consciousness. So when Prabhupada went to America, the hippies were so degraded, were all doing sinful activities. They also became purified. So the qualification for getting purified is you accept the process. That's all. You follow a pure devotee, then you can get purified. So anybody can practice Krishna consciousness. According to this shloka, anybody can practice Krishna consciousness. Now, if Papa Yoni can get purified, what to speak of devotees? What to speak of qualified people? Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajarshiyastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasmamam. So the devotees, the brahmanas and kings like you, rajarishis like you, Arjuna, you will quit this world with this anityam asukham. This world is temporary, anityam. Asukham means there is no sukha in this world. Imam prapya bhajasvamam. You will go back to my world. So that's what Krishna is telling. The highest destination will be attained. And then comes the last shloka of this chapter. So this shloka is very important because this shloka is repeated in Bhagavad Gita as it is 2 times. So one in 9th chapter, another is last chapter, 18th chapter, the end. So in the middle and in the end, it is repeated. Means this is the one of the main verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So kindly repeat after me this shloka. We'll end with this shloka today. Manmana bhava madbhakto.
Manmana bhava madbhakto.
Madhyaji mam namaskuru.
Madhyaji mam namaskuru.
Mame vaishyasi yuktaivam.
Mame vaishyasi yuktaivam.
Atmanam matparayana.
Atmanam matparayana.
Krishna is telling how to do bhajasvamam, how to worship me. Manmana, always think of me, think of nothing else but me. Bhava madbhakto, become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. Mam namaskuru, offer obeisances to me. So mama eva ishyasi, and you will come to me because you are a devotee of me. Atmana matparayana, your soul surrendered to me. So here the photo is given here. This is a photo of Gopakumar. There is one book called Brihad Bhagavatam. So in that one story of Gopakumar is there, who had forgotten Krishna and come to this world. But he again searches for Krishna and goes back to the world. And Gopakumar is invited by Krishna and all the Gopas in the spiritual world. And Krishna is in ecstasy welcoming Gopakumar. And you'll see somebody is coming with a garland, all the cows are looking at him, the Gopas are also welcoming him. Hey, our friend has come back out, and they're celebrating. So this kind of reception awaits us when we go back to the spiritual world. So we should be eagerly looking forward to that time when we quit this body, we go to the spiritual world and unite with Krishna in the spiritual world. So that is the destination we have to aspire for. And Krishna in the end of 9th chapter basically is telling this, that I aspire to become my devotee. So this devotion is very pleasing to me. And if you want to attain me, then you have to cultivate this devotion in the association of devotees. And how do we get devotion? We get from a devotee only, right? How do we get money? From somebody who has money. And similarly, how do we get devotion? By some devotee. So when you take association of devotees, like all of you are coming on Sunday evenings and taking association of devotees with each other and discussing Krishna Katha. So by this, our faith and devotion increases, grows. And then when it becomes peak, and then we'll be able to destroy all our anarthas, all our sinful reactions. And Krishna becomes attracted by our devotion and we can go back to spiritual world. So that confidential knowledge, the most confidential knowledge of bhakti, the secret of attaining Krishna is mentioned very clearly in chapter number 9. Okay, so the main theme of this chapter is bhakti, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. What is Raja Vidya? The knowledge of bhakti. What is Raja Guhya? Most confidential knowledge? the process of bhakti, especially what happens in the spiritual world, the relationship between the Jiva and Krishna, the intimate relationships, that is the most confidential knowledge. It's given in this chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that completes the 9th chapter, and 10th chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga, where you get to know the knowledge of the Krishna in more detail, the opulence of the absolute, where Krishna further explains this point about himself. Krishna is in ecstasy speaking to Arjuna about bhakti, and he continues in the 10th chapter also. And Arjuna is, after hearing this chapter, Arjuna is fully convinced about Krishna's supremacy. In the next chapter, he will say, I am convinced, Krishna, that you are the ultimate and bhakti is the ultimate. Arjuna becomes fully convinced. And when what follows later in the 11th chapter, 12th chapter is further clarifications, because Arjuna is convinced, but others may have doubt. So Arjuna asks further questions to Krishna to clarify others' doubts. So that's what will come in the 10th, 11th, and 12th chapters. Okay. So now we'll pause here. If any one of you have any questions regarding today's session, you can ask. Yes. Actually, this chapter is only 34 verses, but the subject is very vast. So some portions had to rush through. But I'll be sharing some questions which will help you to clarify. And in the mentor meetings, I'll give some topics which will clarify some topics which are not discussed in elaborate today. Okay. Anybody has any question regarding this chapter? Either you can ask or you can type on the chat box.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
what's the meaning of Atma Nivedana?
Atma Nivedana means Atma Nivedana is surrendering oneself fully to the Lord. Just like Bali Maharaj. The example for Atma Nivedana is Bali Maharaj. So Bali Chakravarti, he was owning the entire kingdom. All the 3 lokas, Bhuloka, Bhurloka, Swargaloka, he was the owner of everything. But it actually belonged to the Indra Loka. So it belonged to Indra, but he had taken that position. So Vamana wanted to give back Indra's kingdom. So Vamana, he came and he, you know the story, he asked for 3 steps of land, and then Bali Maharaj agreed. But in 2 steps, Vamana covered entire higher planets and the lower planets. Nothing was remaining. Then Bali at that time, he surrendered to the Lord. Atma Nivedana. He completely offered himself to Bali, to Vamana, and he told Vamana, you can put your feet on my head. So Vamana put the feet on Bali's head, and he accepted Bali Maharaj as his devotee. So this is called Atma Nivedana, offering oneself to the Supreme Lord. Means what? My body, my mind, my words, my property, my family, everything is in Krishna's service. So that's the meaning. So Bali Maharaj is example for that. Okay. So when you surrender to the Lord, means your body, your words, your mind, your everything, you try to engage in Krishna's service and not in Maya's service. So that's called as Atma Nivedana.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So there's one question coming in the chat. Why Putana got role of Mata, even if she came with the intention to kill Krishna? See, this is the greatness of Krishna here. Ahobakeyam stanakalakutam jigam sayapayadapya sadhi lebhegatim dhaturchitam tatonyam kamma dayalu sharanam rajema. Uddhava is telling about Krishna. Krishna is so great. A person who came to kill him, he gave the position of mother. Why? Because Putana, she came to kill Krishna, but she fed milk to Krishna. She put the poison on her breasts and she came to feed Krishna, thinking that, okay, Krishna will drink this poison and Krishna will die. And what is the poison? This is Kalakuta. That poison which came in Samudra Manthan, that kind of poison, Kalakuta, she had put to her breast. And when Krishna was sucking, at that time Krishna sucked the poison, he sucked the milk, and he sucked the life. And after that, Krishna was thinking, hey, she came to kill me, but I drank her milk. So she's my mother. So although she came with evil intention, she had some service. She did some service. So Krishna saw that service. So Krishna neglected the bad portion. He accepted the right portion, good portion. So seeing that, she gave the position of mother. And it's not actually mother like Yashoda or Devaki. Not like that. She was like a nurse. Nurse means what? Like in the hospital, sometimes when after the pregnancy, after the delivery, there are some nurses who come to take care of the child, like that. Not the original mother like Yashoda Maya. She was in the role of taking care of Krishna. That kind of role she got. Okay, so I hope that clarifies the question. There is another question coming here. Who is very dear to Krishna? The one who dedicates everything to Krishna? Okay. See, this shloka, this question will be answered in verse number in 12th chapter Bhagavad Gita, verse number 15 onwards. Krishna is telling, I think verse number 14 onwards. He's telling, he is dear to me, he is dear to me. Yo me bhakta same priyaha, sachame priyaha. Like that is telling, one who is always, I'll read that section here. Basically, a person who is dedicating everything to Krishna and has no other thing, he is called as dear to him. So here is telling, यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न कांक्षति शुभाशुभ परित्यागी भक्तिमान समय प्रियः. Then he is telling tulya ninda stutirmoni santushto yo na kenachit aniketa sthiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. Etu dharmamritamidam yatoktam paryupasate shraddhadana matparama bhaktaste ativa me priyaha. So he is telling ativa me priya. Who is most dear to him? One who follows this bhakti yoga as I have taught here. Yatha uktam pariyupasate. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So you can read this 12.20, 12 chapter 20th verse. So there this answer is given. He is very dear to him. Shivan is asking here how to know that we are excelling in devotion towards Krishna. A very beautiful question, practical question. So as I was telling in the verse number 2, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitramitamutam Pratyaksha Vagamam. It's very practically experienced. So there are 9 stages of bhakti. So when your first thing which you experience is anartha nivritti, is the dirty things in the heart start going away. That's called first experience. Anartha nivritti. Anartha nivritti means the bad habits which one had it will be very easy to give it up. Anger will reduce, envy will reduce, material hankerings will reduce, and spiritual aspirations will increase. So this is one symptom that we are coming closer to Krishna. And next symptom is we get more and more taste for reading, attending classes, chanting Hare Krishna. We want to chant more and more. We want to read more and more books of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We want to know more about Krishna. That hankering will develop. That's also another symptom that we are advancing in Krishna consciousness. And in the higher stages, we get more taste and asakti and bhava. Bhava means feelings for Krishna. Instead of feeling for material things, we start having feelings, wonderful feelings towards Krishna and his devotees. So our circle revolves around Krishna eventually. So Krishna will be the center and we start revolving around Krishna. Everything is concentrated around Krishna. So that is the stage. So right now what you can feel is, one is anartha nivritti, mitigation of bad habits and bad anarthas in the heart. And second thing is developing more attraction towards Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So that is the 2 things which we can right now experience. And you will also find more peaceful in your mind, and the distractions will be less, and one will be more focused in what you're doing because there are less of distractions. So that also you can feel. So these are some of the checkpoints by which we can understand where we are heading towards. Maybe in the Telegram, I'll share those 9 points, the 9 steps of advancement in Bhakti Yoga. I'll share a slide. So there you can have a look at it. Okay. Prabhu, as you said, Rishikesh is asking about Narada Muni, who did devotional service. How did he enter the body of Lord? As devotees don't become one with the Lord. Can you kindly put some light on this? Actually, Narada Muni did not enter into the body of the Lord. Okay. So he never entered into the body of the Lord. What happened was, after his mother died, he went to the forest and then he started doing meditation. And in the meditation, he saw Krishna. And Krishna appeared and disappeared, and he told, you continue following the path, then you will attain the Lord. That's what he said. So he continued meditation, and when he died, so he entered. See, generally at the time of cosmic dissolution, what happens? Everything enters into the body of Mahavishnu. I'll show you here what happens. It's coming here. See here. Yeah, see here. And Brahmana Vyasadeva. So Narada is telling to Vyasadeva about himself. In due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death, as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. So while being absorbed in Krishna, he quit his body, he died. So after death, what happened? Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of this personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements. And thus I acquired, and all acquired fruitive results of work stopped. So all the karmas also stopped. The body of 5 elements also dissolved, and only pure Atma remained. And then what happened to that Atma? Kalpanta idam adaya shayane ambasi udhanvatah Shishasyishor Anupranam Vivishe Antar Aham Vibho. At the end of millennium, when the personality of God, Lord Narayana, lay down within the water of devastation. So this is nothing but Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Brahma began to enter into him along with all the creative elements, and I also entered through his breathing. So generally at the end of dissolution, at the time of dissolution, everybody enters into the body of Vishnu. They stay there in a dormant phase. Okay. Sahasra Yuga Paryante, after 1,000 years, 1,000 Divya Yugas, Uttha-edam Sisrikshata Marichi Mishra Rishaya Pranebhyo Aham Cha Janjire. There he is telling, after this many years, 4,300,000,000 years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord. See, this much is the duration of Brahma's night. Okay. Our one night is 12 hours, but Brahma's night of 12 hours is equal to this many of our years. So all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. Okay, so this is what happened. So at the time of dissolution, Narada Muni entered into the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu along with Brahma, and at the time of awakening of Brahma, again he was brought back and he attained the body of Narada Muni. Okay. Since then, by the grace of Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the 3 divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Okay, so in the next life, he got full freedom to travel anywhere and everywhere. Right? He got a visa, transcendental visa. He can go anywhere without restriction. He goes to Kamsa's place also. He goes to Vaikuntha also. He goes to Dwarka also. Anywhere he can go. So that kind of freedom he got. Similarly, we also, if we become fully obedient to Krishna, become fully absorbed in Krishna, then Krishna gives full freedom for us to preach anywhere and everywhere. Right? So that's a benediction which a devotee gets, full freedom. I hope that clarifies the point, Rishidesh.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Hare Krishna. So thank you all of you for joining today. So can you have videos on for a minute before we conclude this session, so that all of us can associate with each other, all the devotees from different parts of India, somebody from Bombay, somebody from Pune, somebody from Bangalore, somebody from Hyderabad, Visakhapatnam, different places. So wonderful combination of devotees, and all of you have been attending for such a long time, more than I think 3 months, 2.5 months. It's continuously attending. So I'm very thankful to all of you for being part of this wonderful course and giving me an opportunity to teach Bhagavad Gita. So more than you, I have to do a lot of homework. I have read Gita many times, but before this session, I read entire Gita, that chapter, and I also read the commentary of Baldev Vidyabhushan, who is one of the senior acharyas who came 400 years back, and he had written the book. I read these two commentaries, and it helps me also to understand more deeper. So thank you very much, everybody, for being such wonderful students. So, and we'll be sharing the question paper quiz for this, so you can attempt. And tomorrow I'll be sharing the shlokas also, shlokas for this chapter. Okay. Hare Krishna. So some of you were on, some of you I think are in a different place. So I was thinking of taking a group photo of all, everybody. If all the screen becomes on, then we can take a group photo. So I'll just do print screen, then we can have a photo of everybody. So just in memory that we have completed 9 chapters, 50% of Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. So should I do print screen? Screenshot? Okay, some are still switching on. Okay. And some of you I'm seeing for the first time. Rishikesh, Dheeraj, and many of you. Okay, I did the print screen. Whoever is there here, got it. You're on the photo. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we'll meet again next week, same time. Hare Krishna.